All right, welcome. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started, and we are recording this session so that it will be available later for people who are not able to join us today for our session highlighting our portfolio in Africa and the Middle East. I'm Kirsty. I am one of the advisors in the Education Abroad office at SU, and I studied abroad during my undergraduate studies at SU in Madagascar on one of our SU-sponsored programs. I'm wearing my lemur jumpsuit today to represent Madagascar. And I'm going to have my colleagues who are here with me today also introduce themselves before we get started.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm Kirsty's counterpart. I advise students with the last names M through Z. And nice to meet you.
Everyone, my name is Dario. I'm a specialist in the Education Abroad office. I work with our faculty-led programs, so long-term and short-term. So thanks for being here today.
And Matt, would you like to introduce yourself briefly at the beginning too?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt McGilvery. I work for the University of Minnesota, and we partner with Seattle U, so I am here as well.
Thank you. So just to start, we have a poll that I'm going to launch for you. Just wanting to know kind of where your interest is in terms of countries. I think you should see it now. So just wanting to know, we'll have this up for a little bit as we're starting. What countries are you most interested in studying in? And you can choose as many as you are interested in studying in. So before we begin, we also want to just talk about the context of COVID, since we're all doing this remotely right now. Ideally, we would be with you in person sharing this information, but that is not possible. So we know that that's confusing. Right now, students are at SU. We actually have a travel restriction right now, so there are no students currently abroad. And that is, the decision is in the process of being determined for this upcoming winter and spring quarters. That being said, we know that our partners internationally, University of Minnesota, other partners that we'll talk about today, have been working really diligently since kind of March when programs were canceled to make sure that when and if programs run, they are safe for students, that they're sharing best practices in how to address this new landscape that we have. And we anticipate that the world will reopen in some capacity soon, and it's not too early to start planning, since if you want to study abroad even next year, right now is the time to start planning for that. Applications generally happen during next quarter, so we really want to make sure that you know that and are planning, even though right now you're not able to travel. And we're here to help you plan and navigate those challenges. So definitely use this as a resource. We're happy to talk to you about different concerns that you might have, anything like that. Great. So we're going to end our poll, and I'm just going to show you the results so we can see where you're interested in going. So it looks like Morocco and Jordan are kind of the top, along with South Africa. Great, thank you. We'll be talking about programs in all of those places. So first of all, we want to just talk about why studying abroad in Africa and the Middle East might be of interest, what the benefits are of studying abroad in this region. And I'd love to have our alum here, Adelia, kind of jump in here to share, who studied abroad in Ghana. What are some of the benefits that you experienced of studying abroad in Africa?
There was never a day I was bored. There was so much to do. And I was just meeting new people every day, whether that be locals or other students studying abroad. And I don't know, I always had to adapt to something. Like when people say life is so different, like you'll find like, oh, there's pizza, but it's not the same pizzas back home. But like I had to adapt to like everything, cold showers, all of that. So I'm not saying if you're looking for a challenge, you should go there. I'm saying if you're looking to have a good time all the time, then you should go there. Yeah.
Thank you. When I studied abroad in Madagascar, Delia, we used to play like, would you rather? Would you rather have a cold shower with really good water pressure or a really warm bucket shower? Like, you just adapt to those different ways of living life.
Well, definitely a cold shower. It's too hot. So
cold shower. So Jennifer, yeah, great. So some of the things that we've also highlighted here, some benefits of studying abroad in the region. Africa is huge. It's the second largest continent in the world. Thousands of diverse cultures, birthplace of humanity. It's a really important part of the world to learn about and to be in and experience. And speaking from personal experience, I don't feel like my education in the United States, especially in like high school or prior to college, even in college, did a really great job of teaching me about Africa and the Middle East. I didn't really learn about that so intentionally until I studied in the region. It's also an opportunity to learn about specifically the US's historical and current relationships with the region. We are very involved in Africa and the Middle East in complicated, nuanced ways. And so learning from local people what that relationship looks like from their perspective is really important. Another thing is that this region, Africa and the Middle East, in study abroad is considered like a non-traditional location. Not a lot of students study in this region compared to Europe. And so there's less, there are less students, there's less tourism than some of other parts of the world, which creates an environment for deep immersion and transformational cross-cultural experiences. People that you're living with may not, or the city that you're living in, the town that you're living in, might not have a ton of study abroad students. So there's more of an opportunity to, people maybe would have more interest in getting to know you and forming relationships. Another thing is because it's a unique thing, studying abroad in the region can really help you in your resume stand out from other students who are studying abroad. There's also a lot of scholarships for studying abroad in the region as a non-traditional location, which we'll talk about later. The cost of living is typically a lot lower than the United States and definitely than other parts of Europe that our students study in. So your money will go a lot farther, which can be helpful. And then you also, for me at least, felt like studying abroad in Madagascar maybe wasn't somewhere that I would go initially by myself to study, not knowing the language really well, and tourism is not as built up in terms of like the infrastructure, whereas there's a lot of tourism built up infrastructurally in Europe and other parts of the world. So doing a study abroad program in a region where there's less tourism sometimes can then open those doors to feel more confident traveling on your own independently, which is what I experienced for sure. And then, so jumping into program types, I'm also going to launch a poll, another one, to see what your interests are in terms of studying abroad in the region. And let me see if I can find this. Here we go. There we go. All right, so as you are able to fill out this poll, we'll have it there. So the first type of program, there's kind of different structures of programs, like what does your classroom look like? Who are your classmates? What does your day-to-day look like? That can be different depending on what type of program you choose. So we're going to go through some common types and show you where SU programs fit into those different categories. There are some programs that hit multiple of these, so they're not as clear-cut kind of distinctions, but we'll highlight some of them so you get a feel for what those different structures look like. So the first is local universities. These are programs where you are taking classes at a local university. In Africa and the Middle East, most of these universities that we have, that we partner with, are in countries where English is a language that is spoken, a national language. And so I'll highlight the 3 that we have. You're taking classes with local students, or have the opportunity to take classes with local students. Oftentimes your housing will be with local students or have that option. So it's a really immersive experience to feel what it's like to be a student in that country. So the first one that we're going to highlight is USAC in Ghana, which we'll ask Adelia to talk to in just a second. But first, we just want to show you like 30 seconds in Ghana, a video that USAC has put together. Great. So before we launch into kind of the just logistical pieces of the program for SU, I'm hoping that Adelia can share with us some of your experiences on this program and kind of from a student perspective overview of what the program is.
It is the funnest experience of my life. I will start with that. If you aren't considering Ghana, definitely consider it. That it was just amazing. In that previous video, almost all of the like shots and locations I could name, and a lot of the people in that I could name. I don't know, it just was so fun. Like that beach right there, I got an Airbnb on that beach for like $20 a night, and it was like my own room. It requires you a lot. So there's these people called aunties and uncles. They'll help guide you through, or like take you places, and help you like navigate Accra. And I found that really helpful, and it helped me connecting more with and asking questions about the culture and getting used to things. But in like a couple weeks after, in the beginning, they do a couple trips for you and take you places. And then after that, you're on your own. And I felt confident enough to travel across Ghana by myself. I went to the northern region. I went on vacations to the beach and stuff like that. And it's a very, if you're, like Kirsty said, it's very independent in this area. You have to be able to figure out have to be adaptable and try to figure out how to get places, because that's like the biggest challenge. And then once you're there, it's worth it. But yeah, I made some like really close friends. We text every day. I met my boyfriend here. I never regret going here, and it was affordable. I was a rich man when I went. Like I blew through some cash, but I still was in budget, and it was every dime you spent went a long way. You just have to be careful not to spend too much, not to go to the markets and buy too much fufu, like stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. This is me, I'm biased, but if you are considering Africa, Ghana is definitely the first place that you should try going. You get African culture, specifically West African culture, and it's just really helpful to be in a big city and to also like have people to help you out. I recommend, if you're going to go to Africa, this is the first country you should go. It's got a really good tour industry in the city, and then as you get more used to it, you'll be getting used to living there. So yeah, go Ghana.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Like Adelia said, this is a pretty budget-friendly program of our portfolio. This is an SU-sponsored program, meaning that you pay SU tuition, and then it's through a company. So this is USAC is the organization that runs the program in the ground, in coordination with the University of Ghana. So this one you pay SU tuition, and then there's no program fee, and that includes your housing costs. So it ends up, in terms of just room and board, ends up being less expensive than being at SU during that period of time. you're taking classes in English, so there's no language prerequisites, although you will take a Twi language class. Yeah, Greg, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long is this program?
So this program is a semester length as a sponsored program. So it's either during fall semester or spring semester. Most students study abroad at SU during fall semester because that aligns with our fall quarter, so you don't miss 2 quarters. Spring semester aligns with our winter and spring quarters, and so that's trickier sometimes for students to swing, but it also can be a cost saving to go in the spring, because on programs like this, you pay 1 quarter of SU tuition, whether it's fall semester or spring semester. So if you were here for both winter and spring quarters, you'd be paying 2 quarters. On this program, you'd just be paying 1. So that can also be a cost saving thing. Thanks. You're living in dorms. There's courses at the local university in ton of different disciplines. University of Ghana is a major research institution in Ghana, so lots of different disciplines. And then lots of fun excursions all around that I'm sure Adila can talk more about if people have questions. And there's also service learning options on this program. All right, so the next one that we're gonna highlight briefly, this is a message from the director.
My name is Botswana. Welcome to Ciee Gaborone Study Center. I've loved seeing my students transforming and being, especially when they came, being scared and being comfortable and becoming ambassador of Botswana and really embracing my culture, which is the Botswana culture, and then the African culture. That's what I love about my job.
So this program is Ciee in Gaborone, Botswana. There's 2 different programs here. They have an arts and sciences program that is based at the University of Botswana, and then they have a public health program which is also based at the university but has more of a field component where students are doing field placements in public health with local clinics and learning about public health in the country. Similar to the University of Ghana, University of Botswana is a major university in the country, coursework all in English in a ton of different disciplines, so it's really can accommodate a lot of students. No language prerequisites. If you'd like to learn the local language Setswana, you can take classes. Lots of excursions all over the country. Botswana has some of the biggest and best nature reserves in Southern Africa. So there's excursions to some of those, lots of volunteering. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. Yeah. So the next one that's also a local university style is at the University of Cape Town. This is also with Ciee, so that's the organization that we partner with for this. University of Cape Town is similar to all the others, major institution. It is kind of where protests in student protest culture started in South Africa. It's a super social justice oriented campus. There are demonstrations all the time. The classes that you can take are so cool. I visited this program a few years ago and sat in on some classes, and just the relationship with the professors and the students was awesome. Ciee also has their own program center in Cape Town, so you're taking classes at the local university, but they also offer some Ciee specific classes to do independent research. And you can choose whether to live with a homestay, in a dorm, in an apartment, and they do excursions all over the country as well. If you are interested in outdoor recreation, South Africa in general it's got it all. It's got water sports, it's got hiking, windsurfing, all these different things. So a lot of students from the Pacific Northwest who like outdoor stuff, they feel right at home and are drawn to South Africa because of that. So the next type is study center programs. These are programs where you're not necessarily based at a university. It's a organization or company that has its own study center that's programs are designed specifically for study abroad students. So there's a little hybrid going on in places like the program in Ghana that Adelia did. USAC also has a study center, so you can take classes there, but then you also can take classes at the local university. But the study centers provide a lot of support to students. They plan excursions and a lot of field trips, and they are designing courses specifically for students, knowing that you may not have a lot of knowledge of the local culture or language, and so those kinds of things are really embedded into the coursework. Your classes might get you outside of the classroom into the city more to immerse you in that way. And your classmates on study center programs are generally other students on the program. So your classmates would be other students from US institutions. So the first one that we're going to highlight is IES in Morocco, in Rabat. So IES has a study center in Rabat, right in the heart of the city. You don't have to have any language, either Arabic or French, going into the program. You will be studying Arabic regardless. If you have Arabic or French, that is definitely helpful, as those are languages that are predominantly spoken in the country. I also have found that I didn't know this before, but there also are some Spanish-speaking populations in Morocco. So some students who had Spanish going in also found that helpful if they didn't have French or Arabic as kind of a default, back language to use. This one is kind of a hybrid where most students take classes at IES's study center. They have coursework in a lot of different disciplines. Courseworks, there's lots of great ones for political science, international studies, communications, media studies, and then students who have a advanced level of Arabic or French can then also take courses at the local university, Mohammed V. But the majority of students, I think, mostly just take classes at the study center, coming in with maybe a year of Arabic or French. And then they also have an optional internship that you can do with a local organization. Lot of different areas that you can internship with. It's very customized, so they work with you to figure out what you're interested in and then help find placements based in that. Don't necessarily have to have French or Arabic to do an internship. They can find an English-speaking organization as well. And they do fun excursions kind of all over. The Sahara Desert excursion is always a highlight for students, where you ride camels through the desert. They also have an optional excursion to Spain to do a comparative study of Islamic Arabic culture in Spain, in Granada, to do that, to see how they overlap in a really interesting way. And then CIE in Amman is another one that falls into this category of a study center. There's two different programs here. One is for Middle East studies, where it's more thematic courses in political science, international studies, and then they also have a program that is advanced Arabic language, so that would be specifically for students who are wanting to do an intensive language study. You don't have to have any language going in for the Middle East studies program. All of your courses would be in English, but if you do want to do the advanced Arabic, you have to have 2 years of Arabic going in. You can live in a homestay or in an apartment. And similar excursions all over to Petra, that's always a highlight, to the Dead Sea. And if you're doing the Middle East Studies program, there's an optional internship that you can do, similar to the one with IES, where it's fairly customized. And then the third type, mostly these experiential field study programs happen at study centers as well. That's kind of the structure. But the experiential field study label for us means that the program is very intentionally hands-on. So it's the either doing an internship or research, field work is part of the program, an expectation of the program. And so it's very immersive in that way. So we'll highlight some of those. The first one, I'm going to have Matt speak to, since it's the program that he's representing.
Yeah, sure. I can get started. So a quick overview of the University of Minnesota's program in Senegal. And I'll just give a brief overview, but definitely if you guys are at the virtual fair on Friday, stop by. I'll be at my virtual table if you have any questions or, reach out otherwise. But yeah, so our program is MSID in Dakar. The MSID stands for Minnesota Studies and International Development. So this is part of a series of programs that we've been running for a long time. We've been in Dakar for about 30 years. It's an experiential focused program, like was mentioned, in international development. So it's a semester long program. It's usually a group of 10 to 15 students, so it's not very big. Students both from the University of Minnesota as well as universities all across the US go on this program. And you kind of pick a theme or focus of your whole semester, whether it's human rights, public health, sustainability, or entrepreneurship. So that theme will kind of shape your semester. All the students take classes for the first half of the semester all together in Dakar. And then the second half of the semester, you actually go out into the field and do a full-time internship for the remaining 7 weeks. So we get a very wide variety of students as far as majors on this program. Really, whatever you're interested in the realm of international development, you can find an experience here, whether, like I mentioned, public health or education. You can teach, you can work with migrant populations. There's quite a bit of options in the internships. And then if you don't want to do an internship, there's also a research track. Most students do the internship, but yeah, that's the bulk of the program. It's good for independent students who want a pretty unique experience, I would say. And sorry, one last thing to mention, it is language intensive. So you would need, all the coursework is in French. So you would need French background as well.
As you were speaking, Matt, I realized that we had this typo that was carried over from another side, that you do have to have language prerequisites for this program. So we need to update that. Thank you for highlighting that.
No problem.
Wonderful. And then we have a few others that we're going to highlight that fit into that same structure with another organization called SIT.
My name is Christian Magneto, and I've been running the SIT Cameroon program for 9 years now. And before joining SIT, I used to work for the Peace Corps, helping them train their volunteers. When you come to SIT Cameroon, you'll be learning about development from the mainstream perspective and also from a more traditional perspective. You're also going to learn about the transitions that some of the major ethnic groups are having in terms of integrating into a more modern and Western lifestyles. You also will be learning French when you join the program, because French is one of the most spoken languages in Cameroon. You will be studying with Cameroonian students because we integrate a number of Cameroonian students into the program. So from the moment you land into the country till the end, you'll be learning alongside Cameroonian students. Studying abroad is important because it opens doors. It helps you broaden your perspectives. It just enriches you in a way that I think no other university curriculum can do. SIT Study Abroad.
So SIT Cameroon in Yaoundé, this is on our sponsored list. The title of it is Development and Social Change, and that's a really interdisciplinary umbrella. The structure of SIT programs are similar to the MSID programs in that you are taking classes kind of thematically for a portion of the program and then doing a more intensive research or internship. So that's a little bit different. Most students, like on this program, you were doing most students would do an independent study project, but you could choose to do an independent study project or an internship, and it's very, very customizable. So you work with a faculty advisor throughout the first like 3 months of 2 to 3 months of the program to develop your research topic, your field research topic, and then you spend the last month of the program intensively doing that field research. So my sister actually did this program in Cameroon, and I did an SIT program in Madagascar, and the title of my program was Urbanization and Rural Development, but one of the larger research independent study projects that I did was looking at national identity in Malagasy national identity through the lens of music and dance. So I was studying music and talking to musicians and going to places where people were playing music and dancing all the time. One of my colleagues on the program was doing research on deaf identity in Madagascar and was working with a school for deaf children. Another one of my colleagues was looking at religion. So it's super, super broad within these programs to then go really niche into something that you're passionate about. This particular program, you go to different parts of Cameroon, and then they also have you spend a week in Paris to look at the Cameroonian diaspora, and also spend time in a smaller village, and also go to Guinea. So that's the program in Cameroon.
And this one doesn't have a language prerequisite.
This one does not have a language prerequisite. There are Anglophone and Francophone parts of Cameroon, and so you will be studying French on the program, but you don't have to have French going in. You could do your independent study project with Anglophone populations. And then the other one with SIT that we're going to highlight is in Kenya.
Maddie Rai.
My name is Julia.
My name is Malika Walker.
My name is Ernest Tan.
Public health is so complicated in general, but here in Kisumu it kind of touches on everything. So I knew once I saw the program, once I saw Kemri affiliation and everything like that, like SIT Kenya was it for me.
At ISP, I'm actually studying devolution. It's been 5 years since devolution was implemented in Kenya, so I'm trying to find out people's perception on devolution since its creation and its effects on governmental accountability and corruption in Kisumu County.
Homestays were a really good opportunity to really understand what daily life can be like for Kenyans, and it was good that we managed to do not just a homestay in the city but also a homestay in the village. Yeah, and personally, for me, I found that I was more comfortable than I expected, which was a nice surprise. But at the same time, I also think, looking back, I could have done more to engage and get more of the experience. But I'm still very glad that I managed to do this with SIT, and I hope that I will be able to come back and do similar things in the future. ISP is about this place. It's Usoma Village. Usoma is what you call a peri-urban village, which means it's somewhat caught between rural and urban ways of land use, rural and urban ways of living life. So what's been happening here is that, because agriculture production has declined and the fish stocks have declined, people have turned to other ways of making money. So they have started doing sand mining and selling their parcels of land.
It was a really great experience. We had a great balance of traveling and being immersed in the culture, finding out a lot about our host families. We traveled to Rwanda and Uganda, so we got to learn a lot about those cultures and about their history, which was really cool.
So this is a similarly structured program to the SIT program in Cameroon. All the SIT programs have that kind of coursework and then independent study or internship option. This one, as they mentioned, do more excursions also regionally to different countries, to Uganda and Rwanda. This particular program has more actual choice in courses that you choose. For most SIT programs, you have a set of 5 classes that you are taking, but this one allows you to, one of your classes, you have the choice to either do health and human rights in Kenya, or actually take an epidemiology class in Kenya, which is super interesting given our current context, and I think is a really great option for students who are wanting to learn about and do work in public health. And finally, we do have one faculty-led program in the region. Faculty-led programs mean that they are programs that are designed by SU faculty. You're getting credit through SU. You enroll in courses here on campus, and you go abroad with SU professors. Sometimes they partner with local universities that you're taking classes in. So the one that SU has is our French in France and Africa program through our French department. So this is for students who are studying French majors and minors. Winter quarter is in Paris, and spring quarter is in Morocco and Senegal. So if you're interested in that program, definitely connect with our French department to learn more about options. You don't have to do both quarters. You could just do the spring quarter in North Africa. So scholarships. Before we launch into this, I'm just going to show the poll results from earlier before I forget, in terms of where kind of what your motivations lie in wanting to study abroad in the region. So it looks like kind of spread out: language study, non-traditional experience, gain critical perspective, and maybe I think it shows that one person is interested in scholarships, and we're going to jump into that, because if scholarships are not one of your interests, it should be, because there are great scholarships for the region. There are program-specific scholarships. What that means is if you are doing a SIT program, you can apply specifically for SIT scholarships. As an example, SIT has a Pell Grant matching program, which means that if you receive a federal Pell Grant, then they will also give you a scholarship that equals your Pell Grant amount. There are similar scholarships on other programs that you can apply for. And then need-based and diversity scholarships. These are generally not program specific, but more national. There's Fund for Education Abroad, has different diversity and need-based scholarships. You complete one application, and then the reviewers will determine which scholarships you're eligible for and will consider you for any of those. And then the Gilman, that's a huge one that we're going to have Adelia talk about. It is a scholarship that's through the U.S. State Department, and it's a scholarship for students who are receiving federal Pell Grants. In previous years, they've given out scholarship to about 1 in 3 students who have applied, so there's fairly good odds. And the scholarship can be for any program that's 4 weeks or longer, but there is priority given to, like, a stronger application would be a student wanting to go to a non-traditional location. So our students who apply for going to study abroad in Africa and the Middle East have a really good chance of getting it over a student applying for the Gilman if they're wanting to go to Europe. So if Adelia has anything to share about the scholarship, advice, anything you want to add?
You should really hustle to get those scholarships filled. I was a little lazy, but I was able to cover my whole trip, but I could have got a lot more done if I remembered, oh, on September 9th, I needed to turn this in, and it was just 200 words. Definitely look around for scholarships. Part of the Gilman is you have to do a project. If you receive the Pell Grant, you are eligible to receive the Gilman or to apply for the Gilman, and only about 1/4 of people receive it. A lot of the people I met in Ghana had received the Gilman as well, and it made a difference in their ability to study abroad. It definitely solidified that I was able to not pay out of pocket to go, and I also had extra spending money. But the Gilman requires you to do a service project of some sort, and mine is telling people about the Gilman and how to fund their scholarships. So I'll be posting a couple blogs on Hawks Abroad, and you can also post on Hawks Abroad for when you study abroad. But yeah, all of my funding was scholarships, and just hustling. I was cleaning houses to be able to go. And I received some scholarships from USAC for my program. I think all I got was $500, but that made a huge difference. Housing and stuff in Africa is definitely like low cost, but you should definitely try your best to apply for things. $250, that could be a month's worth of food. There's a lot of I know Tortuga and there's I think that's the backpacking company, but to be able to fund your trip, and definitely if there's a webinar on how to budget when you're studying abroad, always tune into those because that helps you use your scholarship money efficiently. In Africa, I know I really want to go back to Africa, but I do not want to go back without learning French. And Ghana is a real reason also why I chose to go was that it's English speaking. I didn't really run into anyone that didn't speak English, but in other countries, it's not really the same story. So if you learn French, that'll also help you apply for other language scholarships and help you go to Benin or what was the one next to us? I think that's, Benin's, I don't know. But it'll help you go to other countries Togo. So yeah, just if you know French, use that to your advantage and to be able to apply to a whole bunch of scholarships. But definitely if you receive the Pell Grant, apply for the Gilman. There's no question, apply for the Gilman. It says 25%, but I think that number was a lot higher considering a lot of people who I talked to applied, got it, and it was a sizable amount. I received 2,000. I received 2,000. So, and that went a long way in my trip. So yeah, make sure to apply for scholarships, especially the Gilman.
Thank you. Yes, apply. You are a great spokesperson for that to say that there are sometimes scholarships our partners tell us at IES or SIT that sometimes they have scholarship money that goes unallocated because people don't apply because they don't think that they'd be eligible. So definitely apply. And that transitions well into the language scholarships. There's definitely program scholarships specifically for studying language. The Gilman actually has a part of that. So the Gilman scholarship is up to $5,000 per student who applies, depending on how expensive your program is and what your need is, that's allocated. But if you are also going to be studying a language that's considered critical need, then you can get up to additional $3,000. So it can be a maximum of $8,000 if you're studying a language that the U.S. State Department considers critical need, which includes Arabic. And then other language scholarships, the Boren is a huge $20,000 scholarship to study language of critical need. It's also through the U.S. State Department. This one is really great if you are interested in working in government, post-graduation, State Department, Defense Department, really anywhere in government. It's great because part of the requirements for the Boren is that you do a year of service afterwards with the government, and you have non-competitive hiring. You hear about positions before they're made public because you have to do a year of service. So it gets your foot in the door if that is a career trajectory that you're wanting to do. And within the Boren, they specifically have an Africa flagship program, which means that you are applying, instead of competing against all of the applicants for the Boren, you are just competing against other students who are applying for the Africa flagship to study critical need languages in Africa. So that's a little bit less competitive than the larger Boren scholarship. And then CLS is listed here too. That's the critical language scholarship, also through the State Department. And that is a summer program specifically that is, it is an all expenses paid language program. So you apply for a specific language, like if you wanted to study Arabic, and then you do the program in that country that is associated with that particular language. So apply, plan early, and use us your resources. We are here to help if you're applying to a program and you have, or applying to a scholarship and you want us to help read over your essay just to give some feedback. We also have an Office of Fellowships on campus that is much better able to do that, since that's their whole office work is to help students get scholarships and fellowships. So they are also a really good resource to go to help get advice on how to strengthen your application. So next steps from here. The first step in planning for studying abroad is to attend one of our info sessions in our office that we hold daily. These are all virtual right now. You can sign up for them on our website. And we'll go over credits and finances and different types of programs at SU and how that fits in. Then after that, you will meet with either Jen or myself. We advise students based on last name. So if you have the last name A through L, I am your advisor, M through Z, Jen will be your advisor. And the first advising session that we have with students is in a small group, so 2 to 5 students together, where we'll talk through goals and how to find programs that meet your personal academic career goals. We'll spend a lot more time talking about finances more deeply in that session, and give some recommendations for programs based on what you share in that session together. If you'd like to meet with us after that, we are happy to meet with you as many times as you'd like, but it's not a requirement, but we're available, and you can schedule appointments online. And then after you've narrowed down to the program that is what you want to apply to, you will complete that application. For all SU-sponsored programs, so those are the ones that we highlighted today, and exchange programs, the application to apply is February 1st for any programs happening during the next academic year. So either fall semester or spring semester, you're completing that application by February 1st. So that sneaks up on you in winter quarter, so definitely come talk to us this quarter if at all possible. And then after that, there are some pre-departure steps that you'll complete, including an orientation that we do prior to you going abroad. Then you go abroad, which is the fun part of this whole process and makes all of the paperwork that you've done worth it. And then when you come back from studies abroad, there's still ways to connect with our office and integrate the experience that you've had internationally back to your time at SU, back to the rest of your life. We have kind of more social events for students to share their experience with other students who studied abroad during that period of time. We've also had more practical sessions with our career engagement office, talking about how to best maximize your study abroad experience on your resume, those kinds of things. And we just want to do a plug for upcoming events. So today, within our Redhawks Around the World week, this is Africa and the Middle East. So in addition to this session, there's a typo in Ghanaian that I'm just noticing now, so I apologize for that. But we do have a Ghanaian dancing demonstration series of workshops that our partners at USAC in Ghana have put together. They're really great. They'll teach you how to do a dance and put it all together. So that is on the Redhawks Around the World website now. And then throughout the week, we're highlighting programs in Europe tomorrow. In conjunction with that, there will be an hour of Irish hospitality with our partners in Dublin, where they have live music, Irish music, and are going to be talking about Irish culture. So that will be a fun event. There's also a tour of Lisbon, Portugal that's up on the website. We'll be highlighting programs in Latin America, along with an Argentine cooking class in the afternoon on Thursday that we're super excited about. One of the directors of our program, a partner program in Buenos Aires, will be joining us live, cooking empanadas and alfajores. So definitely check those out. And then on Friday, because we don't have enough programs going on, there will be a virtual fair where you can speak live with different representatives from programs. So as you're thinking about programs that you're considering, maybe based on ones that we've talked about today, you can come and then chat in a Zoom room with with our representatives. So Matt will be there representing the program in Senegal, and also there's an MSID program in Ecuador that he'll be representing. So we have some time for questions. If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat, and either me, Adelia, Matt, Dario, Jennifer, we can all answer questions.
So I got one. Out of all the programs that you've mentioned here so far going to this region, which one of them are still accepting applications for this year? And what's the likelihood that we can even study abroad this year in the first place?
So for this academic year, for spring semester, all of the programs that we've highlighted today would be available for next year. So starting fall semester, spring semester. There are non-SU programs in Africa and the Middle East that might still have applications open, so we can talk about that. I honestly don't know what the verdict will be about studying abroad for spring semester upcoming. We are in conversation about that with higher ups in the university, since that's not our call. But we will be making that announcement as soon as it's available to us. I will say that there's also options to do summer programs. So this upcoming summer non-SU programs in Africa and the Middle East are an option. We didn't highlight those today since basically non-SU programs is anything that's not on our list of programs. So it's an expansive, ever-growing list. But we're happy to talk about those as well. Sorry, I can't give you a really concrete answer of the likelihood, but just know that we will be letting you know as soon as possible.
The CLS one would be a good one for language if like all expense covered and you can get that in the summer, since they're probably recruiting for the summer now too.
Yeah, definitely. Other questions? Well, we will stick around here for a while. So if you do have questions, feel free to stay and chat with us. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. And we look forward to chatting with you soon and planning your next adventure.